Thank you for your tolerance, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Thank you. I have a couple more additional questions I want to touch on before we adjourn. The opposition, those people who believe in a monetary system quite different than you describe, the people who believe in fiat money and the creation of money out of thin air, do they deliberately have a purpose for dealing with the debt? We know that the debt won't be paid. Do they actually believe that it's a proper policy to liquidate the debt by just reducing the debt by devaluing the money? Because real debt goes down. You know, if you have a $14 trillion debt and you can get inflation going again, because I sense when I talk to individuals at the Federal Reserve that sort of like to see inflation, you know, come back. And do they ever actually in their writings describe this as one way you can handle the debt? And likewise, is there ever an argument by those who believe in that system that this is one way you can lower real wages without lowering nominal wages? You know, if there's a correction is necessary, you know, wages, maybe they should go down, but nobody can quite accept the idea, well, we're going to lower your wages, but we'll lower the real wage by inflating currencies. Do we have evidence that they actually use that as a policy? Anybody care to answer that?
In academic writings, increasingly they're talking about adjusting wages through the device of inflation. As far as the debt's concerned, it's hard to know people's motives, but the standard argument is that we owe much of it to ourselves and increasingly more to the rest of the world, but that we still, as a reserve currency, we can pay the rest of the world off by simply printing money to pay those debts. They don't go on and say that, in fact, what we're really doing is repudiating the debt over time.
I have trouble politically, and others would, to describe our position about what to do when a bubble forms. Those of us who believe in sound money don't create the bubbles. They come from the excessive amount of credit that is created. But when the crisis hits and the bubbles burst, you know, we can do a lot of things like we've done in the last 2 years. We just turn up the printing presses and the spending and hope that's going to take care of it. Others would argue that we just do nothing like we did in 1921. How do we handle this politically? Because right now it's virtually impossible to talk to people saying, well, let's just not do anything. You know, any suggestions on how you present this to people who want to and feel compelled to do something?
Well, I have a modest suggestion, speaking as a non-politician. I would suggest, as an interim step before the promulgation of the new gold standard, let's say, as an interim step to that, I would suggest to the Congress respectfully that the Congress admonishes the Federal Reserve to speak in plain language, speak in plain English. For example, quantitative easing should be called money printing. Quantitative easing should not be allowed in official discourse. Similarly, the chairman uses the phrase portfolio balance channel to convey the Fed's intentions to manipulate stock prices higher. In place of portfolio balance channel, I would suggest the Congress admonish the Fed to use the term thimble rigging, an ancient Wall Street term, or a little more clinically, manipulation. So if we talk about money printing and manipulation, the public can understand what is afoot. These $3 words signify nothing, and I think that Congress should outlaw them.
I wish not to assail the motives of any man, but I would say directly in answer to your question, Dr. Paul, that it is not, I think, correct to blame or to assign motives to those who are manipulating the monetary system. We live in America, in a world of institutions that were created over time and create a set of facts and circumstances in which men and women find themselves operating. The academics believe that the Federal Reserve System should be a form of the Gosplan. It should be the sort of general manager of the national economy, if not the world economy. But they have been trained to think that way in the economics departments of almost every graduate school. This is the way they are trained to think. They're either neo-Keynesians or they are members of, if you'll permit me to say it, the discredited monetarist school. So that it is sufficient to say that sufficient is flawed, it's imperfect, that the Federal Reserve manipulates interest rates as well as the money supply, that foreign official governments are financing the Treasury, creating inflation, without attributing base motives to the individuals who are operating in a set of institutions which were bequeathed to them sort of by chance or by the historical developments rather than by any satanic design.
From an academic perspective, Keynesian economics and even the monetarists have no place for bubbles in their theories. They deal with the effect of the money supply on current production and employment and so on. So that when Chairman Greenspan made the statement that in the early part of the last decade, there is no bubble, we wouldn't know if there was one, and if there was one, we wouldn't do anything about it because it would cause recession. Most macroeconomists agreed with him. Now, that's starting to change. They're starting to cast around for some sort of an explanation of bubbles. But what they've seized on now is irrationalities in the markets, which, you know, certainly from the Austrian perspective is not true. What we look at is the manipulation of the interest rate by the Fed. There is a ready explanation for the creation of bubbles.
I had a Federal Reserve Board chairman testify before the committee that the gold standard had some merits, but it was unnecessary because central bankers have now learned how to manage a fiat currency in a manner which it would mimic the gold standard. Anybody care to comment about where's the flaw in that thinking?
I'm anxious to comment on that, Dr. Paul. And I must say Mr. Greenspan made the same insipid remark. Mr. Greenspan and Mr. Bernanke will have to then explain why it was that two of the greatest booms in American history and two of the greatest panics and busts in American financial history occurred under their 25-year watch. We had the just unparalleled boom in the U.S. equity market focused on the internet stocks of the late 90s, and a collapse under Mr. Greenspan's tutelage of not only the stock market, but a fall in the economy and the rise in unemployment. This is not what Mr. Greenspan, I think, believes would be the characteristics of an economy regulated with a stable price level under the gold standard. And equally, Mr. Bernanke himself, who was the vice chairman of the Fed under Mr. Greenspan, would have to explain the near catastrophic boom generated by the Federal Reserve in the real estate market in the United States, among other markets, the Great Panic and the bust, which have then led to Mr. Grant's quantitative easing 1, 2, and money printing 1, 2, 1, and 2.
Right.
So that this is just incredible that a responsible academic economist from Princeton or one from preceding him from NYU could have the temerity to suggest. All of their 25 years presiding over the U.S. monetary system is a witness to the contrary.
Well, I would say something a little bit different, and I would echo Mr. Lehrman's earlier observation that the gold standard is the least imperfect system, but it's not people-proof. Long before the Federal Reserve was conceived, let alone enacted, we saw plenty of booms and busts. We got rich, we got poor. There was a terrific boom in Great Plains farmland in the 1880s. Moody's hadn't even been invented. For a really fouled up economy, you don't need anything except people. That goes without saying. But what the gold standard did was to introduce an element of reciprocal movement in money from one country to the next, in one country that participated in the gold standard to the next. So I think the telltale feature of our present-day landscape that shows you how far we have come from the gold standard is the existence of this $3 trillion and counting of dollar bills on the balance sheets of our mercantilist counterparties in Asia. You know, that never happened. It couldn't have happened under gold standard because creditors and debtors exchanged cash to clear trades. You know, the failure of AIG is so instructive in this respect. AIG, this immense insurance company with this ever so brilliant financial products group, didn't do one thing. It didn't mark its positions to market. Finally came the day of judgment, and it argued with Goldman Sachs what these things were worth. AIG said 100 cents on the dollar. Goldman Sachs said not close. Goldman Sachs won that debate, and AIG failed. As with AIG and Goldman Sachs, so today with the United States and its Asian trading partners. We never clear our trades. Our dollars go there, they come right back here. We run 25 consecutive years of deficit on current account, and there will be for us, as there was for AIG, a moment of truth in which we must settle.
I just want to add that the statement that you quoted by the Fed chairman shows a complete innocence of any familiarity with the history of monopoly. The Fed has a legal monopoly of printing money. In history, every monopolist that has been granted a legal monopoly has used it. Now, they could use it for motives that they believe are altruistic. You can use it to cure unemployment, or think you can use it for that, or to keep interest rates low. But the point is, even if Mother Teresa was reincarnated and was given this monopoly, she would use it to print money to feed poor people. But the effects would be exactly the same: bubbles, manipulated interest rates, and inflation.
I want to demur. I think Mother Teresa would be a sound money lady.
Well, I want to thank our very excellent panel.